Hello, my name is Codsi, and I'm the founder and Chief Equality Officer at Women in Governance. It is a privilege for me to speak with you today. As the positive impact of gender diversity on financial performance, innovation, employee engagement, and branding is increasingly recognized, more and more companies are working to close the gender gap so that they may benefit from the advantages brought by an equal representation of men and women at every level of their organization. But to aspire to close a gap, you must first know its magnitude and understand its root causes. At Women in Governance, we have found that many companies are unable to accurately identify problems or come up with solutions because they do not clearly measure diversity among their employees. Globally, less than 8% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. Among Canadian companies, that number is less than 4.4%, and women in executive officer positions still earn about 68 cents for every dollar made by their male counterparts. When it comes to governance, 174 out of 641 public companies in Canada have 0 women on their boards. While that number is getting smaller, albeit at a glacial pace, there is even less representation among women in BIPOC or LGBTQ communities or with disabilities. According to the Harvard Business Review, women's jobs are 1.8 times more vulnerable to this crisis than men's jobs. Women make up 39% of global employment, but account for 54% of overall job losses. Economically speaking, with COVID-19, women have been much more negatively impacted than men. Globally, female jobs are 19% more at risk than male ones, also because women are disproportionately represented in sectors negatively affected by the COVID-19 crisis, such as accommodation and food service, for instance. We've also all seen how women's plates got fuller than ever due to COVID-19, managing their careers and their disproportionate share double, sometimes triple, of house chores and homeschooling. Women do an average of 75% of the world's total unpaid care work. As a result, women have dropped out of the workforce at a higher rate than explained by labor market dynamics alone. The main reason why we have to reach gender equality is not out of fairness to women, who are 51% of the population, 60% of university graduates, and more than 80% of buying decision-making, but really for our businesses to thrive, as well as our economy and our society as a whole. Companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on executive teams were 25% more likely to have above-average profitability than companies in the fourth quartile. We all know that there is ample research demonstrating that gender diversity is key to financial success, so it should seem obvious that business leaders have a strong interest in furthering gender equality during this crisis. Companies that choose to reduce their focus on diversity and inclusion may not realize it yet, but they're actually placing themselves at a disadvantage by limiting their access to talent, diverse skills, leadership styles, and perspectives. Where any corporation should begin is by understanding their current position on the gender parity spectrum through an audit, such as, for instance, the Women in Governance Parity Certification. Built with the pro bono support of McKinsey & Company, this innovative certification not only measures the presence of women in decision-making bodies, but also at every level of the organization's hierarchy to ensure that we have a healthy pipeline of female talent. With our support, more than 60 major organizations in Canada and the US have successfully increased the representation of women in sectors where they have historically been underrepresented, as well as in senior management positions. Our evaluation team is the most robust in North America and is further supported by a committee of 15 pro bono consultants from Accenture, Mercer, and Willis Towers Watson, providing certified organizations with a report, thorough analysis, benchmarking, and best practices to maintain sustainable actions and progress towards higher levels of certification year after year. We can all make a difference and demand gender parity, not only from our own organization, but our supply chain and business partners. At Women in Governance, we have signed a historic partnership with the Girl Scouts of the USA. They are a $1.2 billion organization headquartered in New York that has decided to use the power of the purse to align their vendors to their values by asking them to enroll in our joint parity certification. If you want to close the gender gap in the workplace, it is essential to define, articulate, and report back in all transparency on your targets relative to gender parity. You must also ensure your internal structure is bias-free and supports women from underrepresented populations. Forget fit. Diversity will bring positive disruption. Focus on inclusion. Measure job losses or requests for leave. Do they come from women more than from men? Measure the promotion rates. Have they slowed down for women relative to men? Is gender-balanced recruiting maintained or is there slippage? Don't hesitate to give disproportionate visibility to women and members of underrepresented groups on your internal and external platforms. Tackle unconscious bias and build a pool of male champions who stand behind the idea that a larger number of women at work is in everyone's interest. Audit your policies and practices to assess their level of inclusivity. Ensure equal access to development programs and mentoring. Offer unconscious bias training to all women and men at all levels of the organization. Deliver bias-free performance management. Monitor engagement and conduct corrective action according to the results that you see. Establish employee resource groups and equip them with leadership programs and, very important, a budget. Monitor turnover results to ensure succession planning guarantees diversity. Build a diverse recruitment team with clear diversity goals. Review technical requirements of job description to ensure that only those that are truly necessary remain. And stop asking job candidates what they are currently earning before discussing salary. Refuse that any of your employees or executives engage in manels, all-male panels. That should not happen. Companies also need to show that they care for the health and mental well-being of women employees who may be having difficulty setting boundaries between office life and home life while working from home. And once normal life resumes and we start going back to the office with probably a more flexible working arrangement than before, women will have to be very cautious not to be left out of important decisions if they spend too much time working from home while men are in the office every day. The old boys club can be easily reconstructed. Once the Zoom meeting is over with female employees who are behind their screen, while the men are together in person in the boardroom. Progress is not made by paying lip service, but through consistent and deliberate action. It requires action to invest in research and understand an organization's current position on parity, action to ensure female leaders in the middle have a pathway to move up, while ensuring the pipeline is strong, and action to support women from underrepresented populations with the aim of inclusion, not only diversity. Above all, we must amplify the voices of these employees, giving them internal and external visibility, not for our own corporate reputational gains, but to inspire our next generation of female leaders from diverse backgrounds. While we need to accelerate the pace of change, we know that progress doesn't happen overnight. It is an ongoing conversation about what we want our society to be and what we need our corporate leaders to do in order to achieve our ambitions. It is no longer acceptable to blame our dismal progress on a lack of talent or pipeline. If we've learned anything over the past year, it is that our future will be shaped by those who have not been given a voice in the past. Let's allow the disruption we're seeing in the workplace today be a catapult for change. Let's ensure that greater diversity, equity, and inclusion are the motor for recovery. This conversation needs to be had in every boardroom, in our country and globally, every workplace and throughout society, to make sure we continue to shape the world we want to see. One of the advantages of this pandemic is that most learning and development offerings are now available online. So the Women in Governance Mentoring Program is now offered virtually and globally. The best way to ensure you advance your career is to do it with the support of a seasoned mentor whose main objective is to see you succeed. Visit womeningovernance.org for more details and do not hesitate to follow us on social media. Let's continue this important conversation. By working at it together, women and men of all generations, all origins, religions, or sexual orientation, we will make greater progress on the path towards equality and equity. Thank you.